All right, well, good morning, everybody, and I just can't give you the warmest welcome that my heart feels right now. We are about to engage in the next great step in health education in Jefferson County Public Schools. So I really want to thank you for attending, and I see you guys as our greatest hope to get a pilot group starting the when I was taking deeper learning training, they said you can't wait for everybody to get on board. They said start with the willing, and everybody else will see the great things that are happening in your classroom, and they will want what you have and will be a part of. So that's why we're taping today, so that as people join our group, they will be able to receive this necessary background training. So you're going to be our pilot group, and you're going to play a vital role in helping us continue to shape this as it evolves and grows. And hopefully at the end of the day, you will be very equipped to begin teaching skills-based health education. And we're going to give you everything you asked for to be ready in your binders. So I want to just start talking about deeper learning. There's a lot of buzz right now in the district about deeper learning. I'm sure you've heard it. In fact, Jefferson County has created a whole office of deeper learning. This summer there was a whole institute dedicated to deeper learning. So Jefferson County is just starting to implementing, but health education in Jefferson County is way ahead of the curve, and you should be proud because many of you have been a part of this a long time ago. 4 years ago we started, then we were calling it student engagement initially, and let me assure you that deeper learning by any other name is still the same thing, okay? So you'll hear it called student engagement, and that's what I started calling it. The workshop method is another way of implementing deeper learning. Some people call it project-based learning, which is really only a part of deeper learning, but they isolate that term out. So you'll hear many different terms, but it's all part of deeper learning, okay? And what SHAPE America, our professional organization, so the Society of Health and Physical Educators, SHAPE, calls it skills-based health education, okay? So think deeper learning / in your case, skills-based health education, okay? So in your schools, when they're talking about getting on board with deeper learning, you're going to say, I'm ready, and we're way ahead of the curve, okay? So 4 years ago, we started working with Candy, and who was involved in that at the time? Carrie was, Diane was, Stephanie was, Robert was. So several of you were part of that training, and you'll see how beautifully this fits together. So it's just a continuation of the great work we began with Candy. And so when this deeper learning skills-based initiative came to the surface, I called her up again and said, have I got a deal for you? And she was very excited because of the beautiful way it meshes, and because you never want, you know how initiatives start and then they stop and nothing really comes of them. So I see this as just a continuation of a fuller integration of the good work that we've already begun and many of you have already been implementing, okay? So then this past school year, they started training the content specialists and some other leaderships in deeper learning. So I went to a year-long, once a week, every so often, to training in deeper learning that was run by UK's Next Generation of Learning, who the executive director head of happens to be our now Chief Academic Officer, Carmen Coleman. She led that training, and I really believed in what she shared and loved her and was very excited about it and got to know her. And so so we did that whole year-long training, and some of the work that you're going to see today was a product of that training, an outgrowth of that, and I'll share that with you. And then we got to go to a whole week Deeper Learning conference in San Diego over spring break. And again, it's just and that was a whole view nationally and internationally of what's happening with Deeper Learning. You all, it's huge and very exciting. And it was great to be with her. And so when I heard she was our intern chief academic officer, I cannot tell you how excited I was. I think she's going to be phenomenal, and she is so, I mean, this is her passion. And so that was all very, very, very supportive. And then some of you were here then, some weren't, but last August 30th, so almost a year ago, we paid for the author of this book, Sarah Beans, to come and paid for subs for all the health teachers who wanted to come, and we did a training upstairs at Gene's, and at that point you were given this textbook. And so again, you don't want to do a one-day shot like that and then nothing come of it. So I committed then that we were going to keep going, and so this whole year has been that, and here we are today. So I'm really excited about that. So we've been listening and discerning and implementing Deeper Learning in secondary health education, and this is what we hope it's going to look like this year in 17-18. So again, as part of the background in the many ways you're going to hear this voice about Deeper Learning, a couple years ago when they did JCPS Vision 2020, this was their voice. This is what they said. You all, it was a huge paradigm shift. I don't think people realize what was really contained in that and how important that was. Because up till then, you all know, all we cared about was academic knowledge, test scores. We were in the era of high stakes accountability. So everything the district did was committed toward raising test scores, measuring kids' academic knowledge, that was it, and getting them college and career ready. And so when they changed from Vision 1515 to Vision 2020, the words captured it, but contained way more than I don't even everybody realize or grasp. So they said in there, from now on, we care about and are committed to not only academic knowledge, that's still important, foundational knowledge is important, but we really care too. What we're going to do is develop the dispositions and capabilities of students. Okay, so that's in our language, that would be skills. We're going to give kids skills to be not only college and career ready, but also life ready. That word was added, which again, I mean, that's our area, to be life ready. And so that's very exciting. Then, so that was the first. Then again, I know everybody's really excited and hopeful about Dr. Polio and being the interim superintendent. And he also has been doing Deeper Learning for years, and he often calls it project-based learning, but he's been doing this great work at J-Town High School and then for the last 2 years at Doss High School. And when he was elected, he said, and I don't know if any of you saw it, and I have the link, I could send it to you, of his, welcome, and this is what I stand for. He talked about having 3 pillars. And the first one is culture and climate, which I know was music to everyone's ear. But the second one was deeper learning. And he described deeper learning as student engagement, real world connections, and students having passion about their work. So that's his, it's one of the 3 main things he came to do. So that was exciting to hear and to be a part of. And then because he had been working with Dr. Coleman and knew of her commitment to deeper learning, he hired her to be the interim academic officer. And she, in her tape also, which I can send you the link for, says she describes deeper learning as the thing she cares about in life. And she talked about deeper learning. She described it as content, which is still important, foundational academic knowledge, and in our health education standards, that's the first standard, that students will have foundational important content knowledge. But the more important part is that they develop skills and the application of both. So content, skills, and the application of both to real life, or she talks about to a new situation, or Candy talks about having a suitcase, so that when students leave, their knowledge doesn't stay in the health class or on the handouts, but they really have skills in their suitcase for life. We have them life ready. They're going to take those skills to every situation that they encounter the rest of their lives. So. Then, as part of her, in that year-long training I was in on deeper learning, one of the first sessions, we had an amazing experience. And they brought in students from Brandeis Elementary, and at each small group there were like 3 of us adults, and then they put a student or 2 and ran us through this very formal exercise where we were interviewing these students and really just picking their brains, letting them speak, student voice. You know, how do you feel about education? How do you best learn? And you all, it was a phenomenal experience. It blew all of us out of the water. Talk about out of the mouth of babes. And and then we processed what we got at each table with the whole group, and the principal was there to hear it. They call it student agency. And so then our assignment was, and before the next time to come back again, that we had to figure out how we could use this experience, how we could use student agency and teacher agency to get student voice and teacher voice about what's going on in the classroom and how do you learn and what is deeper learning, and, you know, without using those words and so on. So I decided, of course, to do it with secondary health teachers. And so some of you did this for me, and many who aren't here today did. We developed a 4-question survey for teachers and their students. So I asked all my health teachers who would, at the PLC, I asked them, would you take a stack of these home and interview all your health students, or if you want to just do one class, I don't care, but interview, get a feel for your students and how they feel, how do they learn best, and what do they like about their health class, and what do they not like, and what would they change or add to their health class to make it better learning. It was all anonymous, and then we asked teachers to fill out a survey too. So we got back stacks of these, so to compile them, and I wanted to show you that we really did. Our friend started on them over spring break, and then I had somebody this summer sit, and I went through first and highlighted all, you know, everything, and then he compiled them, and you're going to get to see a lot of it. So I just wanted you to see that we really did this. This is real. We didn't make this up. But again, talk about out of the mouth of babes. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a summary of what our students have said, and a summary of the teachers either that we interviewed or last August 30th when Sarah was here, at the end of the day, everybody who was there, every secondary health teacher, many of you were there, answered a survey too about, you know, what did you think of this day? What do you think about deeper learning? If you were going to do this, what obstacles do you think you'd encounter? If we're going to do this, what kind of support would you need from the district, okay? And we've compiled that, and we want to give you some time now to look through those and see what they say to you, okay? And I might add that part of what the teachers said over and over again is, I would really need some training, and I would need to see what it looks like, and I would need some hands-on lessons, because I'm not about to, on top of everything else, recreate the wheel. I'm just going to keep on teaching the way I was teaching unless you give us some support. So all this work and today and everything that we're going to continue to do with you was a response to that, okay? So we're going to hand out the health. I'm going to start with the health student agency, and We only picked out a couple of the questions that had to do with this. Okay, so what would you change about your health class? What would you not change? What would you add to your health class? And he prioritized these in order of the number of times they were responded to. I mean, 1 million people said hands-on activities, okay? So that's listed first. And then in the back is, please share the best learning environment experiences that allow you to enjoy learning, and then what strategies engage you and motivate you to learn and make a difference in your life, okay? So we're gonna give everybody one of these. There are some highlighters and post-it notes on the table. And what I'd like you to do is go through and mark this up, highlight things that you agree with that struck you, whatever, if you want to make some summary comments here, and then we'll share about that, and then we'll do the same process with health teachers, okay? And what questions might you have, as my friend Candy would say? All right, thank you. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. 2, 4, 5. 2, 4, 5. Yes. Oh, absolutely. All right, do you feel ready to discuss? So just kind of an overview, would these reflect, if your students had done them or did do them, do you feel like they're a good reflection? Was there anything that really surprised you, anything that alarmed you, anything that delighted you? So just what are your general comments, reactions, summary statements and feelings about what our students told us this year?
I put a bullet point under music, because I don't, and I know some people have kids do rap and things like that, but I've never stepped outside the box and tried that one, or just music in general, I should say. So that's
Talk loud,
Oh,
loudly, please.
Okay.
And I had the same reaction.
Okay.
Quick fix, right?
Yeah.
We can have
Were they
music.
talking about music in the background?
I don't know. No, I've done
Music
that.
through learning.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to
Yeah.
include music. What else were you gonna say?
Oh, I was
Anything?
just gonna say, so it would be interesting, fun to maybe try something with music this year.
Something that I do, and it's, sometimes it relates, sometimes it doesn't, but I try to pick songs that might relate to what we're talking about. And every Friday, I play 3 songs, and they have to try to guess who's singing it, the name of the song, and then what they have, like the theme, like what's in common. And they love it. And like, if they get it right, I'll give them like a Starburst or something, nothing crazy. But I mean, they're, ooh, what are we gonna listen to today? Or like, if there's not a Friday in the week, they're like, are we gonna do it Thursday? And I'm like, they
okay.
get really excited about it. So
Neat
it's
idea.
that.
What else were your reactions to what our students' voice said it to us?
Relevance. I'm pumped about this. Because that's always been my question. I was that annoying kid. I was like, when am I ever going to use this?
Yeah.
How does this apply to me? And then my math teacher finally started saying, well, you'll use this shelf whenever you are going to build a deck. All right. But, I mean, that's huge. Kids have to care, or they won't.
And know how it's going to go in that suitcase of skills they have for life. I know I was very blessed by seeing that on there. What else?
I like seeing they would not change the topic, so that lets me know that what we are teaching, the topics is relevant to them.
Right.
But it's just our delivery of how we need to get it across as far as the note taking. And I don't use that a lot, but a little bit, so that's something that I'll back off from, the sit and get approach, and more movement, and then also the exercise balls. I just have regular desk and a few lunch tables in the class, so that's the most differentiated seating that I have. So that's something that I'll look into getting more comfortable mats or something like that.
You know, since PE is part of our world too, I was excited to see how much they wanted to go outside, be active, move,
Yeah.
whatever, and sit on stability balls. And I just talked to Knight yesterday, and she did Brittany did a donors, what's it called? Donors choose. And so she asked for these pedal things that sit under a desk so that kids can be pedaling while they're learning, moving. And it was her assistant principal telling me, she said she got that fully funded within a week on that. So that's the way she's going to incorporate some physical activity. So I thought it was neat in the light of this. Okay, who else? Any pressing reactions?
Number one, no more note taking. I translate that through a kid's eyes as in, I don't wanna listen to my teacher stand up there and talk at me. I mean, maybe a little bit of note taking, but how is it presented?
Yes.
And so that, and then all the hands-on activities that I think those mirror each other. Less teacher talk, more student engagement, yeah.
Does that sum it up for anybody, or is there anything else pressing anybody wants to share?
Just, I wanna make a little note if you could. On the guest speakers, I know in the past, you people gave us some different guest speakers to call upon, and I'm not sure where that resource is. I would love to have.
I'll send that out again.
Well, wait a minute, before you do though, this is an added piece that I've been working with all of the community partners that come out to say we can't go in anymore and just lecture these people and leave, okay?
Yeah.
This has to be experiential, hands-on, skills-based learning. So I've been working nonstop with all of the community partners to make sure that what they share is all in line with this whole new skills-based approach. And so there's some exciting things happening that with community partners that you will see, okay?
So Kira, you'll send that list out?
And I think, and to piggyback off what Donna's saying, I think a lot of times, we just bring in a guest speaker and then that's it. And then maybe you have a little bit of class discussion. But if you're doing a project-based learning, activity, that guest speaker should be complementing that project-based learning, or vice versa. It shouldn't just be a drive-by guest speaker and then you're done with it. So I think we need to be more intentional on how we use that guest speaker.
Right.
It's opportunities. There's no boundary to the opportunity sets.
And since project-based learning keeps coming up, let me just inject here that oftentimes project-based learning is done with capital P, capital base learning as like this one big cumulative, summative event that goes on over the course of a whole year, is interdisciplinary and all that. We can't do that in our health classes. So when we say project-based learning, think with small letters, project-based, or think skills-based, or some kind of, yes, or active learning, okay? All right, so now I'm going to share with you the health teacher agency. Just a few of the questions that we asked. It was, what are your thoughts, feelings, beliefs around deeper learning, skills-based learning? And as we move through deeper learning, skills-based, what support do you need from the district and school leadership, okay? And so this is teacher instead of student, feel free to add your own voice to either of these questions if you didn't have the opportunity, and or same thing, what surprised you, what do you agree with, what does all this say to us, what implications does it have for us moving forward, does it reflect how you feel and why you're here today and what this is all about, okay? So, health teacher agency. Oh, and you want 2 extra. Right. And you want an extra, okay. We're on time. I want you to see that this is real. We didn't make this up. Because you all, if we don't have student voice and teacher voice, this is not something that somebody can do to you, for you. We all know you can't teach something you're not passionate about, don't believe in. So, we really wanted to know how do teachers feel about this, and what do we need to support them to make this happen? So, let's hear from you. What was your reaction to the teacher voices represented here, or what did you add as your voice? Or
I think every teacher loves the aha moment, when the kids come back and say, for instance, being assertive, come back in and saying, okay, I tried the, I message instead of you know. So I think anytime that we realize that they're using it,
how exciting. And wouldn't it be neat if we had lots more aha
Every day of
moments?
aha
Yes,
moments.
as they, because they really were. What else?
I mean, I do agree that what a lot of people need is actual lesson planning help, and that's like the first thing listed on there. I think a lot of people, it's like they have good intentions, we have these ideas, but they don't know how to put it there, or, you know, they just, a lot of people, I hate to say this, but they like to be told what to do. And so I think sometimes it's like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
like your students.
Yeah,
Which
like
that
this, you know.
circles right back around to the last one about overcoming insecurities, about change and doing extra
Yeah.
work, because we have lives, we have kids, we have
Yeah.
all this stuff, and it's like, ooh, I really wanna be good for my students, but, dude, help me out. Just
Yeah.
Give me the
Exactly.
lesson and I will do it.
You're right.
I think that's well said, and that's exactly what we heard. I mean, Helen Keller would have heard from teachers from reading this what they needed, and that's exactly why we prepare what we have and are doing what we're doing today, and to support that, okay? You know, I saw a quote once about you can't drain the swamp when you're killing alligators all day long. And so I see switching to skills-based as like a swamp draining activity, and it's nigh impossible to do when, and you know, it hasn't been that long that I've been in a classroom. I get it. You know, sometimes teaching is like a sideline to everything else you have to do, plus your personal lives of homes and families and kids. And so, you know, I know that teachers don't have time to step back and do this. So that's why we've done what we can and want to continue to do to support you to make this happen, okay? What else?
The school leadership restricting class sizes and like valuing related arts, I still struggle with that, because at our school, there are so many kids that cannot read or cannot do math, and it's like, yes, we're important, but you have to get over that. That might be more important at this moment. So,
I saw that too and thought it was huge, and I know you all know that I advocate for you constantly. That's my battle cry in this district is, you know, to help people understand how important health and physical education is and the role it plays in educating the whole child. And, you know, what's not provided for you all in schools in terms of content-specific PD and PLCs and resources, since we're on the same subject. And, you know, Marty Polio has said that's one of his big things is to have resourced schools. I'm hoping and always trying to help school leadership understand your role and place and what you guys do need for support, so.
And a lot of that's, I think, out of our control, and so I look at it as a backwards mapping. So if your classroom is an amazing place for kids to be and they're actually learning and they're showing that they're learning, then I think that's when the leadership then takes a relook, or the kids become the advocate for
Yes.
themselves and for you, that I don't wanna be pulled out of health class, I don't
Right.
wanna be pulled out of PE because
Right. ...
Whereas that's the only thing we can control as
Sure.
teachers is the value, how our classes value. And so that's, I think, the approach that we have to
love that way of looking
try
at
to
it.
take, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you guys work on that end, we'll keep working on this
Exactly.
and.
Exactly, and the kids, and that's what's nice about secondary, they can stand up for themselves.
Yeah, and that one student said, health all year, what would you change? I'd have health all year, isn't that exciting? So you guys keep working on your end, and we're working on this end for you, and we're gonna get there, okay? Is there anything else?
This is off topic, sadly, sorry. But talking about our curriculum, and maybe not as, people say not as important. I know at our school, and I think all over, family consumer science, life skills, they're gonna start hiring, they're saying huge amounts of those teachers back. And the reason I even know this is because I'm gonna have to teach a life skills this year, because I'm a health teacher, and we're so overpopulated with all these kids that need the life skills for part of that education program. But whenever you look at the curriculum, it's exactly health again at a higher level. So that's kind of a plus for us health teachers, knowing that supposedly coming, the family consumer science is coming back.
Interesting.
I
It's
know.
it's the health lesson at a skills-based, with a
Yeah.
skills-based content.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just all it is.
And it's because I'm guessing, I know from, our kids, so many kids always say, what can I take you again for?
Aw.
So,
Wow.
don't you love that? And now we're seeing a big growth in the life skills, so that is a big plus for health.
That is.
So
It's what-
when you're asked to teach that life skill, you go, just want you to know, I am so on board with this, but it's just health. Just so you know.
Right.
I mean, it is.
You know, and,
Well, first of all, when
it-
she called to ask what I do, and she said, let me read you the curriculum, I was like, that's what I teach, Right.
Yeah.
They're just not making that
connection.
yeah.
I'm getting kids life ready. You know, and at Brown this year, they wanted Diane, or she is going to teach a life skills class, and they were trying to get me to write a new course code. And I said, nope, I'm not doing it. This is health. Call it life skills, call it health, you will call it whatever, but we've got this, lady. So, okay, that's exciting. I just wanted to comment on the one that overcoming my insecurities about change. Really, I think I teared up when I read that because it was just so honest, and so it was a hymn. I really was touched that he was in touch with that and was vulnerable enough to share it, and spoke for many of us. I know. I mean, change is hard and a lot of work, but also scary, and so.
Donna highlighted that too, and you know what came to mind with that is that if those insecurities, and we find we're insecure, we need to just look in the mirror and say, this is a partnership. My classroom is a partnership between me and the students and me. And if you approach it that way, I think, and you tell the students that we're trying something new and we're gonna do this together, those insecurities kind of, in my opinion, go out the window.
Because they have all kinds of insecurities about the projects they're
Absolutely,
getting ready to
and
do.
we're in this together, that door
Yes.
closes, it's us together, this is a partnership. And you learn from them and they learn from you, and that creates that safe place.
And Carrie and I are a perfect yin and yang. So
Yeah, that's
she went for the student partnership, and I immediately went for this partnership. That and that's why I believe in the PLCs and hope that all of us together will continue to support and create and help each other with our insecurities. I mean, I have insecurities. I'm convinced of it, but it's scary to be taking this on. So, so that's exciting to think about partnerships, and maybe a good place to end. Okay, all right. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Candy, who's going to take it from here.
Thank you. Give me just a second. if you don't
As
mind.
Donna alluded, when she called me and said, we're delving into this new approach to health education, and I think it aligns perfectly with the workshop, I'm wondering if you want to work on this. She sent me this book, and I read it cover to cover, and I was amazed at how embedded in there the same things that we've been talking about, as Donna's already said, workshop in there, the deeper learning, all those pieces were just so beautiful. This is such a great resource. I just wanted to put that out front, that I know we're going to be delving into it, and you all have a copy. As Donna said, the work is so valued that they paid for the author to come present, paid for you guys to all have this resource, but it's amazing. Everything that you'll get today, lessons and units, are based straight from this book. So just wanted to go ahead and say, when you want to go and look for some other idea, or, if you see that the lessons today are kind of tailored to the high school teachers and you're a middle school teacher, open that book. Here are ideas directly targeted to middle school teachers, to elementary school teachers. I mean, it has it all, including web resources. So, of course, we'll be delving into it, but just right from the front, I want to make sure that we give the credit to this book and these authors, because everything comes from there. Our learning targets. When we go through our day together today, here's what we are going to be focused towards. I'm going to give you a moment to read the 3 learning targets. The ultimate goal is that you will leave today understanding the skills-based approach and the 5-step model more deeply so that you can feel comfortable and ready to implement the lessons and the units that we're going to share with you today. So it's kind of twofold. We want you to leave, feeling like you've been equipped, you've been supported in the way that you requested. We've just looked at the data where the teacher said, please, give us the resources, give us lessons, show us how this would look, and we want you to leave feeling like you got that. But I think it was Brianne who said, in some cases, we just want to be told what to do. And these are lessons and units that really can't be implemented well unless we understand how this fits together. How are we developing that skill through these lessons or through this unit? So we want to make sure that connection is really clear. So the agenda, we are going to spend some time here in the morning going through the foundations of skills-based instruction. Recognize that some of you sat in a full day professional learning experience with Sarah Bean, so we're not going to belabor it, but we want to make sure that we're fresh around those foundations. And then some of us, of course, didn't have that opportunity to meet with her, so it's important that we're on the same page. And then we are going to go right into looking at units and lessons. We'll make the connection to the curriculum, the new curriculum, and think about the big picture and how does this flow, how does this fit together. And then Donna's going to talk to you about next steps and how this will look moving forward. So we start with foundations of skills-based instruction. And this is something I know I've shared with some of you all before when we've met. But this what, why, how format is something that I like to use all the time. And I like to use it because when I think about in the classroom, a lot of times our natural instinct with our students is to be really clear about what it is we're asking them to do or what it is that we're teaching them. And we'll often also be really clear about how we want them to work or how this is going to go. But a lot of times we'll forget the why, which I think goes back to the point you were making. Why is this important for me? The so what? How is this going to help me later in life? So adults are the same way. We're exactly the same way. We want to know the why. In fact, we probably value it most out of everything because otherwise it might seem like a waste of time to us. So why is this important for us to go over? So I'm actually going to start with the why behind skills-based instruction first. This will be brief because Donna's already actually given you quite a bit of why through looking at that data, but just to hit on a few more points. First is that piece that's already been alluded to with health, literacy, and transfer. The transfer idea goes back to that suitcase. We want the kids, when they leave our classroom, to own it. They don't just associate their learning with what happened in the classroom and only apply it when they're sitting in a health room. We want it to be in their suitcase so they can pick it up and they can take it with them to new situations, to their life later, 40 years from now, because they own it and it can travel with them wherever they go. A lot of times our kids struggle with that. We know that. We know that we teach them all about these topics and why they're important, but then we'll see in their real life they're not applying them necessarily. So what we want is to ask ourselves not just, do the kids know what to do or what the information is, but do they know how to do it? And will they know how and be able to use it when they're hit with a new situation that's unexpected for them? So that's what we're heading for with that health, literacy, and transfer. This quote is just a nice little summary comment about that idea. I'll read it to you just in case it's a little difficult to see in the back. Health literacy is linked to literacy and entails people's knowledge, motivation, and competencies, that word that Donna used earlier, to access, understand, appraise, and apply health information in order to make judgments and decisions in everyday life concerning healthcare, disease prevention, and health promotion to maintain or improve quality of life during the life course. And according to your health standards, it's not just our own health. We need to also be able to apply this to help other people improve their health as well. That's a piece that is also part of the standards. So we want the kids not just to know it, but to be able to use it. And this skills-based approach helps us with this. The other piece is something that Donna's already mentioned. There's nothing new here, and we're also not throwing everything out. What you're going to be doing with skills-based instruction aligns with everything you're already doing and everything you already believe. So you believe that students need to be engaged. This approach has them engaged. You believe that in order to be engaged, kids have to actually interact and have hands-on opportunities and be able to make meaning and be able to talk to each other. The workshop structure is what allows that to happen, and you're going to see that all the lessons that you're given today are written for you in workshop structure. So it's already, it's just going to be there. And of course, all of this goes back to deeper learning. It aligns exactly perfectly with deeper learning. And then the final rationale behind the skills-based instruction approach is your standards themselves. And I'm going to ask you to just turn and talk for a moment. You have this graphic in the first, it's actually the first page of your binder. I know it's a little difficult to see on the screen. But if you will take just a minute to look at the graphic and then turn to a partner, what does this graphic remind us about the role that skills play in our health standards? Please take a minute and talk about that with an elbow partner right beside you. What do we notice immediately? They are skills. Your standards are all skills, except which one? Number one. Number one. So number one is the only content topic-based standard that we have. Every other standard, 7/8 of your standards are skills. So when we think about our traditional classroom, not that the content is unimportant, please do not misunderstand me. These contents and topics, of course, they're important. But they are only addressed within that first standard. And when we think about the traditional classroom, if we were to kind of take and monitor how much of our instructional time is spent around content and topics versus how much of our instructional time is spent teaching, practicing, modeling, reinforcing skills, we would probably see we spend most of our time in the content piece. Because we tend to do a unit around sex education or a unit around substance abuse or a unit around tobacco, and a lot of times the skill of accessing valid and reliable information might be a day or might be one lesson, or maybe we don't see a skill in that particular unit in the way that we've been doing some of our units. So this approach will ask us to make a shift. The content is still important, but it's going to help us make sure that we are also really addressing the skill instruction around those other 7 health standards. Excuse me. Yes.
And I think it's important to remember that once we get back in our schools, and then you get the school-based pushes for the tests and the principal pushes for, I mean, it's all downhill. I get it. I get it. But it's like, we gotta remember this. Because like right now, it's easy to be like, oh, yeah, gung-ho. And then once you get in there, you've got 5 kids pulled, and then it's just, you all know how it is when you're in your day, and then you're like frustrated. So
And that's why I laminated it for you, so you could sleep with it, wherever you go, hang it up. I mean, seriously, I hope this is gonna get so much going back to you that I wanted it laminated for you, because you do, it's so easy to keep, so. Thank you for that reminder.
Yes. So the final slide for the why portion of this, the rationale, is something I stole directly from a PowerPoint presentation that the authors, Beans and Alperin, delivered in a webinar, and it just hit me. So I'll see if it hits you all the same way. They made the point that health behavior theory, research says, knowledge alone, well, let me start with this word because that's the important one. No health behavior theory says that knowledge alone will change our behavior. And one theory suggests that knowledge is only a precondition. If I want to make a change, I do have to have that knowledge. It's a precondition, but simply having the knowledge will not help me to make will not make the change for me. It's not going to push me to make the change. And then they offered this noticing. Turn and talk to your elbow partner for just a moment in response to that. Do we agree? Do we disagree? Take a moment to respond to the person beside you.
Which one do you do every day?
Well, we all do that.
Bet you do. So if you don't mind, I'll just use the hand signal as a cue to ask for your attention when we're ready to move on, just because it's quiet and respectful, and I know we all are familiar with it. So if you see me raise your hand, or my hand, excuse me, please just pause in your conversation and give me your attention. Thank you. So just give me a quick formative assessment. Give me a thumbs up if you agree that this statement has some truth to it. Yeah. So I think we've had a brief but still a little bit comprehensive background as to why this skills-based instructional approach is important. So before we move any further, we want to practice what we preach. So we're going to take a brief stretch break that Carrie's going to lead for us, because we know it's important to have some movement.
And I asked Carrie, remember how many of our students said they'd like some movement in their room? So I asked her to do some things with us for our breaks today that you could implement in your health classroom, okay?
Yeah, and I'm gonna change it up a little bit because of our space, not a lot of space, so,
Are you gonna send us?
If you guys stand next to each other, yeah,
Okay.
we can be okay. Yeah.
all right, so let's just do a little bit of a brain activity, and then we'll add some other movement to it. So what I want you to do is take one hand and grab your nose, and some of you may have done this before. Take the other and grab your ear. Now get a mindfulness moment, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna switch like this, okay, and switch like this, and go as fast as you can by doing that. So ready, go on your own. A little more practice, good. Go a little faster, a little faster. So remember, you should always have that cross going on. Cross going on. And it does become easier, because I do this all the time with kids that I'm getting to know. Alright. So once you have it, now what I want you to do is add some marching to it. Okay, so you're gonna now engage your lower body. as
One
you
side's
do
easier
this.
for me than the other, I'm sure.
Excellent. All right, now, the old school is, remember this one? Yeah. Got it, that was pretty easy, we do it all the time. Now switch hands, because most of the time we put our dominant, does that become a little more difficult?
I want to pat on it.
All right,
And
and
then-
now,
I'm like,
now,
I'm like-
because of the camera, we're not gonna, circle the table, but just walk back and forth amongst others. You've got obstacles, people around you, pat and circle, pat and circle, pat and circle. Walking, 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 pat and circle, pat. Now skip. Uh-oh. Now, walk backwards.
Stand, put in the
Walk backwards. All right, freeze. Now, back to this. Walking backwards. Go.
Oh.
Oh.
I got it wrong.
That is very cognitive.
I was like, we're all walking in a different direction.
All right, can you do that and skip without poking yourself in the eye? All right, freeze. Now gather with your side of the table and just discuss maybe what skills you're just working on.
Heather, let's stop doing
While you're wrapping that up, now just change your discussion to those skills you just talked about. How can the kids, or in what way can our kids take those skills and use them outside of our classroom?
Things going on. I need to figure out which one to ask first.
Last thing, if we'll just share across table, our group, like, will you all start, like, what was one thing you just discussed on how students can, how those skills then translate out? Yep.
We were talking about how, like, multitasking with life and carrying heavy loads and, you know, being able to do multiple things or deal with multiple things.
Yep, excellent. Do you have something different? I heard you say something.
Kind of the same, if a student has, something going on in a core content class, math, and, frustrated as far as solving a problem and going through the steps, not giving up, and knowing how to, kind of reset if they're struggling, and reset a little bit.
That is a great word,
The motivation.
reset.
I like
Getting our
it.
kids to take a breath and reset. Yeah, Diane, I saw you do, you just stopped, it was like, oh, I'm starting over again, it was like so obvious.
And with her saying that her stopping, she said it was the motivation too. You know, sometimes when it doesn't come easy.
Yeah, I wasn't getting
Feel
something.
of getting frustrated and.
Stop and reset, start over.
Something that just occurred to me when you said the reset is like, just stop and you don't have to take everything so seriously. Like, we're all laughing at each other, running into each other, and it's not a big deal.
Right, yeah.
Chill out, we can do this.
All right.
I think that's why the stretches are good, because it lets the class reset.
And
Everybody's
have a
kinda
little
like,
fun, make it a little fun, yeah, exactly.
can you send us that slide, just for sure that one, so we can, it's kind of it's kind of fun to use every day, be like, oh, it's time for a stretch.
I'll send you the whole PowerPoint.
Okay, there you go. Yes.
Right, thank you, Carrie.
Just kids like the visual, don't like to see the dog, you know, somebody else stretching.
So now we're going to move into the what. And in order to kind of help us to think about this, I'm going to ask you to do a quick write. So if you could grab, if you have a device and you like to type, or if you have your notes page that you were given by Donna, if you want to just use your notes page. But I'm going to ask you to take a minute, think of a skill with which you feel proficient. Any skill. It can be related to sports, it can be related to the arts, it could be changing a diaper as a parent, whatever skill you want to pick. And I'm going to ask you in just 3 or 4 minutes, break down what was it that took you to get to a level of proficiency with that skill. You can make a bulleted list, doesn't have to be prettily worded, but break that skill down. What did it take to get you to proficiency? Again, I'm going to ask you to turn to your elbow partner, take just a few minutes to share with them the steps that it took to get you to proficiency. All right? Just kind of see if you have any commonalities between the two of you. Absolutely.
And then learning what you did
Stop regurgitating what's already in the book.
Just for fun, we're going to do a quick go around, and I'm just going to ask you to share what a skill you were thinking of. Okay? So whether it's changing a diaper or figuring out how to bat, you know, whatever it might be. What were you thinking of? Okay.
Planting flowers.
volleyball.
Listening. I think I kind of misunderstood.
No, you
it.
did.
Or we're like,
Yeah,
we're fine. I thought it was talking more like in the classroom.
Which is fine.
Okay, so we said like being excited about what you're teaching, like getting their attention, and I don't know. We just talked about like being genuine, like, and if I believe in what I'm teaching, they'll believe it too. Like, that was kind of that excitement.
So you're kind of thinking about those intangible pieces, like your attitude and your approach.
That's what
Yeah.
we said, like your passion and your attitude towards like how you like to learn and how you. I don't know.
Okay.
We talked about how we're very animated, both of us, and we unintendedly wrote very similar things.
Great minds think alike, huh? So what were you thinking of the same skill then?
I feel proficient at connecting with people.
Okay. And would you mind sharing?
Signs of my child being tired, getting to bed.
Okay.
What?
Signs of my child being tired. I become proficient at that.
Yeah.
And taking my kids on adventures, or my kids into others.
Okay. And Carrie, what were you thinking of?
Interpersonal.
Okay, so you chose one. Listen to the variety of what we were considering. Let's take one that we can all relate to, okay? We're going to focus in on, I think we've all ridden a bicycle. We may not cycle to the level that Robert does it, but we've all ridden a bicycle, right? What are some of the steps that it takes to get to proficiency with riding a bicycle?
Well, you
Just-
have to want it. Like,
well-
you have to not be scared.
You have to care. It has to be important enough that I want to do it. And then, do I just go out and get on a bicycle and I'm proficient, I'm riding? What did this take? Just start yelling out some answers.
Sometimes training.
Maybe some coaching.
Balance.
Coaching, feedback, okay?
Little steps.
In what way?
Training wheels.
Well, like, my kids learn without training wheels, so they line up with striders, and so they foot strike and lift. coast, and actually their feet. Then we put pedals on, and then their feet go on the pedals, and then they have to.
Okay,
so
so
it's a series of steps. The
you scaffolded the experience.
And then, but they have to want it, like, they had the skills, but
Mhm.
then they didn't want the big bike.
Okay, so you gradually took them towards independence with a series of steps
Uh-huh.
where you took away support.
Yep.
Give me something else.
Robert said, tell me, he said mistakes, so sometimes you have to.
Falling off your bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
You-
to either
Landing on the
learn, sometimes you have to
bar.
backtrack instead, you have to learn from the mistakes.
You have to practice, have mistakes, errors, and failures, your falls, and then keep trying again as you reflect and learn from it. Okay? Anything else?
The right equipment, proper bike and helmet safety features.
Okay, so there had to be some knowledge there and some of the right supports, the right equipment. Okay. Did anybody ever see anybody else ride a bike before you decided to ride one yourself? Okay, so seeing what it's supposed to look like, modeling. Okay, so consider all those pieces that we just named of what it took to get us to proficiency with the skill as we talk about these pieces that are embedded in skills-based instruction, okay? So according to the authors, a skills-based approach is planned, sequential, comprehensive, and also relevant. That has come up, that word has come up in this room probably 10 times already this morning in different ways, but the relevancy piece is huge. Sequential, just as you were saying, in steps, scaffolding it, building. Planned, obviously. Comprehensive, getting them to the big picture. What's the end in mind here? And it is done through participatory methods, and we have to use functional knowledge in order to get to that end goal of actually leading them to transfer. They're going to be able to apply this to enhance their lives as healthy individuals down the road. Okay? So this is their overview slide, but we're going to look at those pieces in just a tiny bit more detail. Focused on skill development. Instead of a classroom where we focus a lot on a topic at a time, this asks us to focus on skill development first and foremost. So that standards are the framework, and your units are not content-based, but the content is still important. The content is the context for teaching the skills. So instead of a whole unit on tobacco, tobacco is embedded as we're talking about how to refuse, or making decisions, or advocating. So we bring in the content in a way that's very meaningful to the students through the skills instruction. So skill development, the foundation, all right? That second element, the participatory methods. Again, we have named this in about 20 different ways already this morning. This is the piece where kids are engaged in it, they're acting on it, they're hands-on, they're moving, they're talking. So it aligns directly, as we've already said, with what we talked about with workshop, because the workshop structure allows for a little bit of instruction and kids interact, and then we reflect on what we were supposed to learn. And that ultimate goal of student independence you were talking about. Ultimately, we want this kid to be able to go off and ride their bike by themselves at the end of this. We want these students to be able to get to independence and go out outside of our classroom to advocate or to access valid and reliable health information that's going to keep them healthy, or to make a decision that's going to enhance their own health. So student discourse, they're going to be talking a lot. We want them talking. And of course, they're going to be highly engaged because they're going to be interacting. The final piece that they bring out is that piece about functional knowledge. And I know we know our content is so important. We don't want to think that that's going out, and it's not. It's not. But it's just brought in a different way. Because the reality is nowadays, every kid carries around their own little personal computer in their cell phone. And if they need information, they can get it in about 2 seconds. So Just the information by itself, as we saw earlier with that quote from Beans, just that knowledge by itself does not make for a change in behavior. They can access that. What's going to make for a change in behavior is when they couple that knowledge in a meaningful way with this skill. So functional knowledge, functional information, is that information that is usable, applicable, and relevant to them in that moment so that it really sticks. They really get it and it's meaningful and they take it with them. It's that need to know idea. I really need to know this in order to figure out how I'm going to practice these refusal skills. I really need to know this right now as I'm applying my decision-making skills. And so then it brings it to a higher level of importance to them. Yes?
So, okay, then my mind goes to my school, where I'm nagged about my grade book. And how do we put grades in for this? And it's like, I don't want to be inaccurate, and I don't want to make it hard on me, and I don't want to make it hard on the kids, and I want it to be relevant. But how do we do that? Is that coming up, or?
That is coming up. That's a wonderful question, though. That is a wonderful question. The authors address that in their book. We are going to look at, for every unit, we're going to talk about performance assessments that are more like the summative. And as we go through and look at the lessons, we could actually have conversations too about, well, what would be a formative assessment we could do along the way. Sometimes those are spelled out as suggestions for you guys. Sometimes as you're reading through, you guys might say, ooh, we could, right here, here's what we could do right here. So I love the question, and we need to revisit it as we're walking through this later today.
Thanks.
So again, that knowledge, your content, is the context through which the skills are developed. Still very important. It's just shifted in the way it's approached. So, before we move any further, to be transparent, in addition to stretch breaks, sometimes we can just structure an activity to allow more movement. So we intentionally added a standing conversation here just to allow you to move. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, instead of just turning to an elbow partner who's beside you, this will be brief, but I'm going to ask you to stand, and when I ask you to move, please hold until I cue us, but when I ask you to move, one person from this side of the table will find a partner you've not yet talked to from the other side of the table. You'll pair up and you'll briefly talk about the prompt that's going to appear on the screen. It'll just be a couple of minutes. It'll just get us to stand, move, process, and then I'll ask you to go back to your seats. Okay? All right, so the prompt is twofold. First, what makes sense to you about the skills-based approach so far, now that we've talked about why and the what very briefly? The how is coming. We're going to get to the how, which I know is the important part for a lot of us to kind of process. And also, what are the wonderings that you still have? You've already shared one. So what other wonderings are swirling in your mind right now? All right, please stand, find a partner, and have a brief conversation.
I'm sorry. What we got?
Please thank your partner and head back to your seat. Just because I know you're wondering, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there that we are going to take a formal break. It's coming up in about 15 or 20 minutes, but we will pause and take a 15-minute break for those of you who are wondering, are we going to do that? It's coming, promise.
The wondering at the bottom there.
Great, I love it. So you had the standing conversation around the what and the why to kind of process for a moment. I'll open the floor. Would you like to offer any of your ahas, your connections about what's making sense to you, or a wondering?
I think what makes sense is that, we talked about, me and my partner, how, the kids truly they can find any kind of information they want, whether or not it's real or not, but they can find it, using technology. But can they do things? She used the example of if you're at your bus stop and someone offers you a cigarette, how do you refuse? or ask you, to do something else, some other drug, anything like that. And it's like, can they actually do this? But then that actually led into our wonderings, how, and go back to what you said, so how am I gonna measure this? Like, am I gonna have 8 grades in my grade book, 1 per skill? Is this like a pass-fail, like, yes, they can do the skill, no, they can't do the skill, and to pass health, they've gotta do so many out of the 8 skills? Or can I give you a 70 out of 100 on a skill, and I'm like, well, they have it. Like, so, how would I judge, do they know this?
I'm going to add this. We're going to keep a running list here of our wonderings, because this is obviously something we definitely need to make sure we address, because it's come up a couple of times, and I can tell this is a big wondering for us. So at the end of the day, or further along anyway, after we've seen some lessons and units, I want to make sure we come back and see if we need further exploration. Okay, so thank you for putting that out there. But I'm going to piggyback on what you said. Can they? Do they know how? You spoke directly to, are they able, do they know the steps of the skill development and how to do it? And the next piece is, will they? Will they? And that's something we haven't yet named, is through all this practice and the process you're going to use, you're building their efficacy. You're building their confidence and their comfort with the skill, so that it's more likely not only they can, but they actually might. They might follow through. So that's another really important piece. I appreciate your bringing that question out and helping bring that to my mind too. Another wondering or aha?
I mean, I agree with like the technology thing, and then it just kind of came to me as well. Is like nowadays with the technology era and where these children will go in the workplace, it's those human skills that will make them successful and to get jobs and be marketable. They can't just have content knowledge like a computer and be successful. They have to have humanistic skills, and this is making sure they have those skills to be successful. Like communicating with some of our young children, sit by their peers and just text. But eye to eye and know how to communicate.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like that, human skills.
Humanistic skills.
Love it.
All right. So the how then. All right. This is going to be a brief overview, and then obviously we're going to dig into it, because I'm going to share this, and you're going to say to yourself, but how will this look? And we're going to get to that. But here's the nuts and bolts of the how. All right. This is the 5-step model that is kind of pared down to a very brief overview. I'm going to pause and ask you to open your textbook and turn to page 29 in the textbook that everyone should have. If you don't, please let us know.
And everybody take one of these.
Oh, yes, yes.
What's the same one that
Mine was this one. I was gonna say, what is your first? And now I'll share.
No.
Yeah, because I was gonna say yours.
Yeah, here it is.
I said ours are at school.
Yeah, mine's in school.
Everybody has one permanently online? Okay.
So here on the screen, you have the, as I said, kind of the pared down overview of these 5 steps. In a nutshell, step 1 is going to talk about introducing the skill. Step 2 is going to talk about presenting the steps for the development of the skill. In other words, what are the actual skill cues? What are the steps if you are going to perform this skill? And then you get to the modeling. They have to see it. What does it look like? And not just, in some cases, here I'm going to show you this pretty version. They need to kind of have the curtain pulled back. They need to see, like, how do you struggle through this if you're trying to apply this skill? They need kind of that think aloud, or the witnessing it in action, not just here's the pretty final product. Then they get to practice it multiple times, different situations, different health context to promote transfer. Because if they only see it in the context of sex education, then this skill is only for sex education in some of those kids' minds. So we promote transfer by showing it across multiple areas, multiple domains of our health. And then they understand how they can apply it to their life in different ways.
And Kim, do you think, because we're so short on time, Robert and I were talking about this as health teachers, whether we're on a semester or whatever our weeks are that we have kids, that's a way to fit in our entire curriculum.
Absolutely.
Every content can fit, if we look at it as an 8-step or the 5-step model but with the 8 skills, that's a way to make sure we get everything done.
Absolutely. That intentionality of saying, here are all these important topics or content pieces, where do they fit naturally within these skills? How can I make sure that across this semester, or whatever your course might be, I've addressed all of this that's important? Yes. Great.
So like, will this would be something like in every lesson, something we do daily, right?
You're going to see in just a moment, well, it'll be not just a moment, it'll be a little bit later, but you're going to see how it would look across the unit, how we would embed these skills across the different lessons. Ultimately, it's almost kind of laid out to where you might have a lesson around introducing the skill, then a lesson that's going to present the steps, and then a lesson where they're going to see it modeled, so that just for simplification and to make sure that every step is addressed very strategically, that, of course, is open to modification down the road. Anything that you're going to be given today is a living, breathing document. So this is us taking this wonderful resource that we were given, pulling all these wonderful ideas and trying to put it into a format that's friendly for you. But when you live it with your kids and you come back and say, ooh, you know, this piece would be more effective if we did it like this, or, oh wow, we need to look at this part, lesson 2, whoa, that didn't work. That feedback is going to be crucial. Okay.
I'm just thinking
Yes.
of a lesson plan that goes with it. Just I felt like worked out well for my class. So we did skits in every topic. Like I threw out, let them choose, but you know, sneaking out of the house past curfew, or coming in past curfew, sneaking out of the house, alcohol. We did all. But anyways, on the skit, because we're talking about that, we're talking about we don't want just the no, yes, when they're writing skits. In my curriculum, or in my prompt, I put on there twice, during this skit, well, you know, you go through all the basic things, full sentences, no is not a sentence, but anyway, twice, I want the person to be challenged again. Like, you're not getting off the hook because you said, if I come home late, my dad will be up and whatever. So twice I made them have that, you stumbled and you fell, and now how am I gonna get out of it again? And they had tried another refusal, whatever. But then I try to relate it to the whole class, because you're starting to think, well, that worked for that situation. Then during my rubric, or during my, where the kids are going along with each other's skits, I put on there, today out of skit number 1, what worked for you? What could you actually say? Or what didn't work? Like, because I wanted to really think about, okay, with the sex, that maybe these 2 things would work, but that number 3 is not gonna work for me. Or if it was the alcohol, oh, I could use that excuse, or that really applies to me. But her saying this other thing, that didn't make any sense in my life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of it worked out to be a really good assignment and outcome. And then as a teacher, while they were doing their skits, I of course would be like, okay, we're gonna stop there. That skit is not relative, it didn't make sense, so I'm gonna let you go back and practice that again, because that would really never happen. And you would never use that. Do you think you would ever really use that excuse of this, and then your friend be like, okay, your mom's gonna stay up, you know, whatever. So, I don't know, it was it worked out to turn out to be a good, realistic skit.
The point you make is an important one that the authors actually address numerous times throughout the course of their book as they talk about different skills. You're bringing up the point that, again, in order to promote transfer, kids will be tempted to please us. They're going to tell us what they think the right answer is, or what it is we want to hear. But that's not going to help them when they go to their own lives and they're really in these situations where they're not sitting there to please you, right? And so one of the things that they talk about, when we say real life scenarios, in some cases, you can't pick the right decision, you have to pick the best decision for the circumstances that you're in. And having real conversations, sometimes, like that's something that came out in the decision-making scenario. What if my home life is this, and here's my situation, and I don't have the ability to just say, here's this decision? then what are other options? But they talked about being able to make it real for the kids, having real conversations, and also, as you said, possibly adding some of these, modifications or nuances so that they can really see the relevance or the application to their own experiences. That final piece, step 5, is where this encompasses the summative evaluation. How are they doing? Where are they in terms of this skill development right now? So it's a piece for you to think about your performance assessment, but it's also where you're really thinking again about promoting transfer. You're trying to take them outside your classroom and push them towards something real world, their own lives, where they have to apply that skill outside the classroom. Okay? So I've talked for a few minutes, but on page 29, you see a little bulleted list in the left-hand column that briefly overviews these 5 steps with just a tiny bit more detail than what I shared just now. It will only take a few minutes, but if you would, please just read over that little bulleted piece that explains the 5 steps. And then please turn to your elbow partner and briefly connect back to our example of riding a bicycle and those pieces that we said were necessary for our skill development and being able to ride a bike proficiently. Which of those pieces that we named for skill development do you see here in this 5-step model? Take a moment just to make those connections. So again, I'm just going to do a quick check-in. Give me a thumbs up if you could see a lot of connections between what we said and those 5 steps. Okay. So let's briefly talk through these. Step 1. This is just where you introduce the students to the skill. And that's the piece. The second bullet is the most important one for some students. Why should I care? So what? How will this help me in life? A lot of times, if we forget to address that piece strategically, we've lost some children. So as part of that first step of the model, not just here's the skill, but why should you care? How are you going to be able to use it in your life? Why is it relevant to you? And this is something that really hit me when I read this book. Over and over again, the authors talked about the adolescent brain not being able to think long term. And when we talk to kids about someday when you're a mom, or someday when you're a dad, or down the road when you have a job, a lot of kids can't go there. Their adolescent brains need relevance whenever possible that's closer to where they are right now. They care more about the fact that substances could affect my appearance and keep me from getting a date or keep me from doing well on my soccer team than they do about the fact that when I'm 40, I may have whatever, these conditions. Yeah. So thinking whenever possible to make it as relevant to where they are now as possible will help. And then, of course, explaining the educational outcomes, putting it in that context. What is it exactly within our course that I want you to know and be able to do at the end of this? Where are you headed here as well? So life and this course. That's the first step. And then step 2 is all about making that skill transparent to them. What exactly are the steps one follows if you are going to proficiently apply this skill? Breaking it down into the steps or the skill cues so there's perfect clarity around the skill.
You bring up stuff about relevancy. If you don't in our discipline, in our subject, if you start off by saying that everything you're learning is just being applied to you, you've already lost it all. I certainly haven't got any answer. The only answer I've got is that I don't have the answer. All right, so I don't think I got all the answers, but I do know this. It covers what you talk about current relevancy. You start off by telling them everything we're going to learn is only worth what you share with others. It's only worth if you share with others. So you said, well, shoot, I'm not going to smoke. It won't have anything to do until it won't won't hurt me till I'm 50, why am I gonna worry about it now? Well, you know, you need to be able to take what you've learned and share it with others. You might talk a parent to go into a smoking cessation class. You might talk a brother or sister to exercise more. You might talk an aunt or uncle to avoid some type of drug use or something. So, you know, what you're learning is not just to be internalized, it's supposed to be shared. And that's the bridge you get to say, well, you teach them something now and it doesn't have any relevancy to me now. No, it certainly doesn't if you're just not going to share it. But everything we're going to learn, we're going to share. So, I mean, that's the answer to that.
So you're making the connection too to the higher level standards, because in some ways they do build on each other. The higher level standards 7 and 8 both take it outside yourself. So you're strategically speaking to that point, the fact that when you get to health enhancing behaviors, it's not just for yourself, but do I know it well enough that I can influence others? I mean, it's transparently named there, and it's obviously the focus of advocacy. That's all about advocating for others too. So you're kind of speaking towards that point there. So thank you. So step 2, now we have clarity around the skills cues or the critical elements, steps of the skill. And now we have to model it. The kids have to see it demonstrated. It's helpful if you give them both positive and negative examples, because we know that as teachers, that helps add to clarity. Here's the non-example, here's what it's not. That helps me to understand better what it is. And they have to be able to have that opportunity to see the skill being applied proficiently so that they know what it is supposed to look like, and you have that opportunity to correct misconceptions. So again, as I said before, sometimes, I would dare say, every time, I'm making my own generalization, but if they have the opportunity to hear the think aloud, to see it being struggled through, to see it being applied, that it can be very helpful. And then of course, step 4, they get to practice, and more than once. And the more relevant to their life, the better. If you can put it into real life scenarios. Again, we said that we want to try to use lots of different situations across the health domains to promote transfer. Feedback is huge. Feedback is huge. We know when we thought about our own skills, and we thought about being on that bicycle and having somebody yelling, pedal faster! No, keep your body upright. That's what helped us to get going on that bike. You think about yourself learning how to do the free throw. You needed somebody telling you, no, you got your hand positioned wrong. No, try it like this. Follow through. Those pieces are critical. So feedback cannot be overemphasized. And then the final step, again, more feedback is here, but this is where we do have that evaluation of student performance that's more formalized. We can have formative and smaller check-ins along the way too, but this is the kind of summative assessment. And you do want to try to take it outside the classroom here and also foster that self-evaluation skill adjustment on their part. Give them that opportunity to think about, okay, how did I do up against those skill cues? Ooh, I need to work on this one. Because again, you're putting more independence in their hands so that they can own it and take their little suitcase with them. A comment about the graphic. That graphic is taken from the textbook. When you see that, that little building block tower, that is actually the 5-step model. And every time you open a different chapter of the book that relates to a skill, they will have the 5-step model written out for that specific skill. So we're going to actually look at goal setting in a few minutes when we move to the goal setting unit, and you'll see how they put the building blocks on there as a graphic, a visual for us to see, well, how do these steps look in goal setting? Let's look at the building blocks here. And of course, the key ideas are always the same. They just kind of tweak some of the elements, the pieces that would go with it. So again, I am recognizing that we need to move, and we are getting ready to take our break. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to stand and move again to the opposite side of the table, but this time you find a different standing partner. And you're going to synthesize by simply completing this fill in the blank. Before we reviewed the foundations of skills-based health instruction, I thought, but now I'm thinking, so it's just a synthesizing statement that kind of helps you think about something you've realized or something new that you're wondering, whatever you might want to complete that blank with, okay? So I'll ask you just to kind of do that, and then I'll move you to the next piece. So please stand and find a different partner.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for coming back on time. We appreciate it. Two little minor things. One is we're about to go through the binders, and they all look alike. So I'm going to pass around a sheet of labels, and I'd suggest you put one on the front of your binder and put your name on it, okay? So that you have it all year and you don't leave with somebody else's or get them mixed up at a PLC or whatever. And also I just wanted to mention those little book markers that we passed out to you. I'd suggest that you write on the top like page 29, 5-step model, and we have others for other things, so that your bookmark is marked with some of the important things for easy reference. And then for those of you who are borrowing a text for today, take these with you, okay, and then mark your own text when you get back to school. All right, so these beautiful binders, I just want to real quickly walk through with you what's in here, and then later, we'll examine each piece. So I'm just giving you a 2-second overview. So first of all, you have 7 tabs for the 7 skills, and everything is color coded. So setting and achieving goals is blue, and then there's a graphic, an identifiable graphic for each skill, and the sheets are color coded also. So there's goal setting, and these are in the order that we're going to suggest you teach them, and we'll build that rationale later. But it goes goal setting, just flip with me, accessing valid and reliable information, analyzing influence, and that's the end of the thick part, because you have all the lessons for those first 3 skills, because that's all the further we're going to get today, okay? But skill 4, communicating, you have the overview sheets, but not the lessons. Those will be coming at the next PLC or PD as we develop them, okay? So then it goes decision making, practicing and enhancing health behaviors, and advocating. And then there are 3 blank tabs, and we'll talk more about each of these later, but human kinetics, the textbook author has all of the online web resources, the posters you may want to print out, etc. And I have to give each of you a code, because we bought 60 textbooks, so we have 60 codes for you to be able to get online. But here's what the website looks like to help you get online. And then in the very back is a sheet that we're going to get to later. And let me just 1 second. I was so excited. You know what in church they call confirmation, when things keep appearing? And as I was preparing this was in USA Today just last week, you all. And it said, the title, isn't this alarming? Suicide rises among middle schoolers. I copied the article for you so you can have it, and I know you'll want to read it because it's very important information. But here's what I wanted to show you that was so exciting to me, and I highlighted it and circled the word skills. This is in the back of your blank tabs, okay? So look at pressure in a variety of forms can prove deadly for those who have yet to develop coping skills. So they're saying suicide rates are way on the rise, and it's because kids need skills, okay? And then on the back, that quote is there again, but it also says they haven't yet developed the coping skills that adults use to not commit suicide, okay? So I was excited about that and wanted to show you. All right, so we'll delve in more later. Just wanted you to have an overview of the incredible response that everybody worked together to provide for you in response to your voice that said, if we're gonna do this, we need this kind of support, okay?
So we had a bit of a technical glitch for a second there. We couldn't get our clicker to match up with our PowerPoint. So what you didn't get to see was a check-in with the agenda. You know, we are moving now into that piece that I know you're wondering about. Thank you. We know what's on your mind. So how does this look? You know, we've had the whole foundation, we've had the what, why, how, but how does this really look in the context of my health classroom? And so in order to do that, we are going to be walking through the first unit together on goal setting and achieving goals. We wanted to walk you through the binder to show you the resource at kind of big picture, because we're getting ready to move in your binder directly to that tab around setting and achieving goals. I will tell you that we're gonna be a little methodical. We're gonna spend a little time in this first unit and in this first set of lessons because we have two goals. We named this at the beginning of the morning, and I want to remind you again. We want you to obviously leave here feeling like you're ready to teach this unit. Oh, I see how these lessons flow together. I feel like I have what I need. I could go teach this unit now. So we want you to feel ready and equipped to teach the unit, but we also really want to spend time with this first unit in helping you see that connection between what we just explained about the foundations of skills-based approach. How do we see the 5-step model within here? How is it important to make these pieces transparent to the kids and to build on this so that they leave at the end of this unit really understanding how they can apply the skill of goal setting to their life outside this classroom? And so we're looking at it from two lenses. How do we see skills-based instruction here? How am I going to implement this in my classroom? Okay, so bear with us as we spend, as I said, a little time delving into this first unit. In the afternoon, we are also going to walk through units 2 and 3, but it's going to be a much quicker process. Okay, so by the time you leave, you will have been exposed to all 3 units. So in order to dig into unit 1, I'm going to ask us to regroup. You know, we like to do in our learning sessions what we would do with our students. We like to model. So we're going to use a grouping strategy in the same way that we would in our classrooms, because we like to give opportunities to share ideas with different people and to interact with others and hear different perspectives. So I'm going to ask you to move, which means that you're probably going to need to take just a minute to kind of get your stuff ready in case you don't end up sitting at your own spot when I move you. So if you need to tidy your space, you'll need to take your binder with you and your pen, pencil, your book. So if you need to take a moment to gather that.
You became a creature of habit. What's your space? Good job.
We're using a strategy that I know many of you have used before, the lineup strategy. But we're going to use it with a different prompt than you may have used in the past. So let me just briefly explain how this works. I'm going to offer the prompt, and you're going to mentally decide how you would answer it. And then you're going to physically put yourself in, it won't really be a line, it'll be more like a curve, I guess. But you'll put yourself in the line according to your response, alphabetically. So let me just give you an example. I'm going to ask you to think about a standout moment or experience from your summer so far. It can be a standout because it was a great experience. It could be a standout because it was quirky or unusual, whatever it might be that's a standout for you. You just mentally decide on one. And you just pick one of the words that you're going to pull out to be the one that places you in line. So for example, my summer's not been the most exciting. I will tell you that. I've been doing a lot of work. I've got a trip coming up, but it's not here yet. So my standout moment would be I got to be an extra in a commercial. So I'm going to use the word extra. I was an extra in a commercial, and when I would put myself in line, I would, if A's are here and B's and C's, I would probably put myself as an E somewhere over in there. I'd make sure that I put myself alphabetically in line. Right? Make sense? So we'll just kind of wrap the line around. We need to be single file, so if we kind of find ourselves clumping up, just spread yourself out, shoulder to shoulder, so that we have a line around the room. Make sense? Okay. After you've made your decision about yours, please take your stuff with you. Thank you for that question. All right, go put yourself in line, please.
Sorry, lizard. Lizard.
A lizard.
In-laws. They moved out.
Well, you're above me.
And that's, where did you say the start?
A's will be over here, and we'll just kind of circle around the table, so Z's might be over here.
Where's the C for Cuba?
Oh, okay.
Woo.
D.
I'm an O. I.
Stress
See
is
there?
clear.
C, C,
Alright.
D.
Stress for
Where are you? H-I-G H. You're, I'm L, I'm after you. Okay. Oh, you don't sing the alphabet. It's
What letter are you?
I'm gonna sing it. Do you sing it?
D.
No?
D, okay, I'm D.
G-I-L-O.
Are we good?
I think so.
Okay. When we do the lineup, we always like to share, but I will tell you, with the prompt I've given you, I realize we could have some really great long stories. So I'm going to ask you to share the Post-it note version of your standout moment. So try to think of like just expressing it in one sentence. For example, I would say, I got to be an extra in a commercial. Okay? So we're going to start here. Give us your Post-it note version of your standout moment.
I got to go on a cruise to Havana, Cuba.
Nice.
We went to Arkansas as a family and we jumped off of the cliff.
Dog got hit by a car.
Oh.
Girlfriend trip to Florida.
And my in-laws moved out. They were building. They gone.
I went to Costa Rica, but the lizard, a lizard like actually scared me. Like, if I didn't know it was there, I was like, I don't know.
San Diego, Safari Park.
Beach,
Ooh, fun.
3-week adventure with my children and escape the stress of life.
And my softball team won a national.
Nice. Congratulations. So I'm going to group you now based on where you're standing. So I'm going to ask you two to have a seat together, and you two, and you two, and you two, and you two. This is going to be your partner for a little while now. So please just have a seat together.
All right.
I didn't have to be part of it.
Rub it in a little bit.
Not yet.
You have put your time in here.
27 years.
Thanks for not
So you have to go after, all women, you have to go first of the month.
So if I could call you back, I'm going to ask you to take just a moment to get set on the right page. So if everybody would turn to the tab for setting and achieving goals, and just have in front of you the page that is the unit overview. It's the page that has the little icon in the top right corner, and it has the name of the skill written at the top in blue. Unit 1, setting and achieving goals.
Looks like this.
You are right. You are right. So I will just share with you that this page will be really critical to pay attention to every time you start a new unit. Because honestly, if you've had the time, I would highly recommend before you moved into a new skill that you would review the chapter in the textbook, because it's amazing and it really, helps to clarify and kind of explain some of the thinking behind some of the different pieces, the principles, the concepts, or the activities that you'll see in your lessons. So reading the chapter could be incredibly helpful, but if you can't, or even if you do, this unit overview is the synthesis. This unit overview kind of pulled out, here are all the most important ideas about this particular skill, just to kind of frame the lessons that are going to follow. So, because I want to emphasize the importance of really analyzing the unit overview every time, I'm going to ask you to use a strategy that's just a little, as I said, methodical. It's the say something strategy. So what I'm going to ask you to do with your partner is you're going to chunk this. So, for example, the first chunk is the rationale. So both partners, there would be quiet in the room for just a minute or so as both partners silently read that section to themselves. And then when we see that both partners have finished, one person would quietly turn to the other and say, so, say something please. And both people have the opportunity just to offer one thought, one connection, one wondering, whatever it may be, just one thought that emerged when you read that section. After both partners have said something brief, it needs to be fairly brief, then we turn to the next chunk, silent reading time again, pause and say something. And we just repeat that process through the entire unit overview. That includes the second page. There is a second page to this where you'll see the 5-step model. Okay? What questions do you have about that strategy that I'm asking you to use? Nope, you are only working, thank you for that question. You are only working on the 2 pages that are in your binder. You do not have to be using your textbook right now. What other questions do you have? All right, then please start reading that first chunk. Okay, I'm going to pause you there, please. Even if you didn't quite get finished, that's okay. But let's just kind of debrief whole group for a couple of minutes. Let's look just at the first question, if you will. We said that the unit overview is really important to pay attention to every time. So let's think about why. What might be some important information that unit overview did kind of bring to light for us or share?
The learning targets are very important.
Yeah. It lays out specifically what our learning targets are.
I love that.
You love that? Who said
Yeah.
that? Good, I'm glad.
We just set the international standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure, as proficient readers, a lot of times they'll sometimes do a strategy that's not as proficient because we're so focused on meaning making, we'll sometimes ignore some of our visuals that are over there to the side. So you may not have noticed that little sidebar, but it has some helpful information. I saw some of you counting lessons, but if you look, it tells you there are 5 lessons, plus a little overview of what the performance assessment might be. And you just brought out for us, it tells you exactly what health standard we're working towards.
That's for it has the middle school, or there's it's the high school.
It is the high school. Middle school,
When we did it, they're very, very similar.
I mean,
Like, there were only a few
Like verb changes.
that were different.
what else did you notice that would be important information?
Gives you the pages of the textbook, because you're gonna wanna read that. So, goal setting is pages 127 to 143, for example.
So, okay, when we're talking about the standards, and these are the high school standards, where are the middle school standards?
They're exactly the same.
Oh, it's
But
not
they-
just a little, it's these things.
The only thing that changed is the curriculums, the state standards are a little different in
Oh.
verbiage. But national standards are the same across curriculum.
So where are they?
If you look on page 132 in your textbook,
Okay.
They
To my
also,
initial question.
they also list
Love you.
grades 6 through 8.
I see. Oh, this is fabulous.
But our,
Thank you.
But the national standards are the same.
she's
And
like,
here-
For the most part, they're the
It's-
same.
you were saying there's curriculum for the.
She was specifically wanting to
Okay.
use like
Yeah,
6A.1
She
versus.
brought up,
The states.
state standards.
Oh,
Little
You know
more
what, the
detailed.
state standards have been totally rewritten. And the imperative was to make them more aligned
With the
with the
national.
national standards. And I get to go next week to be on a focus group to say yay or nay to them, so they should be,
Okay,
so at this point, I'd ignore the contempt.
okay.
And just focus on.
There's no
on the
program
national.
review anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that,
Those are your statements.
So,
that's it.
back to the unit overview. The piece about the skill cues, I think will be crucial to pay attention to because obviously you're gonna be teaching those and modeling those and asking the kids to practice those and assessing those. So that's a really important piece. Not only are they written on your unit overview, but remember Donna mentioned that your binder has other resources. One of the resources available to you that comes directly from the web resources is this little poster that lists the skills cues. Now this has not been blown up. Obviously you guys could make this much larger if you wanted to and you could laminate it. But it's, I believe there is one at the back of that section.
We have an 8.5 by 11. It prints out as a 11 by 17 also, and or it could be blown up to a real poster. But you have that original in each unit.
So when you look at the skills cues, you can see that the students have to follow those 5 steps, but then on your chart it kind of breaks out, what do we mean by a SMART goal? Because that's something that needed a little extra explanation. So these are the 5 skill cues, and then you kind of have on your right-hand column, and by the way, here's what a SMART goal is. Any other observations or wonderings about the format of the unit overview?
We were discussing, I'm not sure if it'll be touched on later. So, I always do goal setting, and it lasts a week. And they set these goals, a short-term goal on one side of a visual that we do, and then a long-term on the other side. And then we never touch it again. So it said, periodically guided to revisit that goal, and so we were just talking about, do I make a copy of what they turned in, and then a few weeks or a month, I'll pull that back out one day and say, let's remember these goals. But then we were also saying, your goal, yes, the adjustable whatever, things might need to be adjusted, but sometimes it just dramatically changes. Like something major might happen, that's no longer a goal anymore.
Right.
The first day of school it might have been this, but now a month later, I've got a whole new goal because I hurt my leg and I can't try out for that team, but now I can do something better with my upper, you know what I mean?
You
So,
could- I would think of like touching on it on a particular day, like if you do a bell ringer or a journal, like on Fridays, we just briefly
Look at the goal.
revisit what our goal was,
Oh,
where we
I like
at,
that idea.
how we're
Yeah.
progressing, and just
reflect.
to touch into it. And they could say,
Right.
oh, I'm gonna change it.
okay.
And talk about how that happens.
You know what I'm seeing here at this number, this is the student growth goal, like the one you have to create
Yeah,
for your
it's-
students. This, if you utilized students creating the SMART goal, that's your student, and then following through and then coming back and adjusting. That's your student
Continually
growth goal
goes
for
through
the year.
Here.
Now, maybe don't do it with your first semester because
Sure.
you wanna work out some kinks, but then.
Right.
That's, yeah.
But like, this has always been stuff like you said, is we touch it, then we drop it, and then we move on, and then it's forgotten, and.
And if they keep it in their folders, that's always a big thing too. If they keep their folder going properly, then they'll have it, they can pull it back out. But if they don't, that's what I'm saying, do we make a copy, so I have what you're, you know what I mean?
And the materials that we're gonna walk through, actually, like, it doesn't get to the point of what you said, actually saying, here's my structure or my routine, but it actually talks about some of the very ideas that you're bringing up. Because what you've named, under the SMART goal, they used adjustable, they made a choice. A lot of times it says attainable, but the authors wanted to name the fact that we often have to totally adjust or change or start over. And one of the pieces that we're going to see as we walk through the lessons is that you're going to provide students with support, like you're going to give them some type of a graphic organizer that's going to help them scaffold into writing a SMART goal. So it may be that you're like, so-and-so, you have reflected, you have realized you can no longer implement this goal, it's no longer relevant to you, therefore, here you go, set a new one. You know, and so, yeah, those pieces, I love this conversation, and I think that you're going to see that as we walk through the lessons, what you're saying is perfectly fitting right in. It's beautiful.
Olivia, that's exactly why we made the decision to, she gives lots of recommendations, but over spring break, we did some final decision making, and that's exactly why we decided to start with goal setting, so that you would have a length of time, either a trimester or a semester, to have it be real and adjustable and implementable and checkable and all of that.
And a couple of things, like as I said, this is 5 lessons the way it's been written here. But if we realize we could take this deeper and add things to it and make it 10, it's like we'll have 18 weeks with our 6th and 8th graders. We can do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have flexibility.
We're
living and breathing.
Yeah, we can do whatever we want.
I think the main thing would just be to remember to think about your pacing so that you can also delve into the other skills.
Yeah, but there's 7
yeah,
skills.
absolutely.
18 weeks.
Yeah.
We have
And
more than 5 lessons and we could spend on this.
I have to do an official scope and sequence or kind of curriculum map, and partly I wanted to see, you know, what happened today to set that, in stone, or not in stone, but to give you a help, you know, you have this many days, that kind of thing. But also then, as some of these lessons with community partners are developed, for example, my goal is that sex ed would not be taught in isolation anymore, but, you know, it would be taught in pieces, you know, as your decision-making around sexual health and so on, and all of those other community partners. So do you see how it's all gonna merge together?
Parents would probably like your units would opt out.
Exactly.
But it's just, you gotta find out about it.
I mean, that's how life is. I have one player because I have one life. I don't have school players.
Okay, we're not gonna there.
So, we've already actually, I think, addressed the second question through some of our conversations. We've already started to think about some of those pieces that are going to show up, such as, what about implementing this across the course of the semester? Or how are we going to have those opportunities to actually build in reflection and implementation and that type of thing? So, we're going to now turn to lesson 1. And I wanted to put that visual and the cue. This will be fast forward. You know, we want you to leave comfortable, but we also recognize we've got to move to get you through 3 units. So in some cases, we'll have to kind of push our pace a little bit, but always feel free to, you know, yell out or raise a hand and say, can we delve into this a little more deeply? Or I'm confused here. So please feel free to make this informal and meet your needs.
And before we move off this second page, I just want to point out the obvious of one thing. This is that ladder, those 5 steps, but we inverted it because she has step 1 is foundational on the bottom, but nobody reads bottom to top. So they're color coordinated the same way. So step 1, she has at the bottom is the biggest and it's purple. But because you're going to teach in this order, we kept the colors that we just, and this model is the same for all 7 of those standards, but the content, like what that looks like for goal setting, is specific for each lesson, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Donna. If you want to flip to page 129 in your book for just a minute, you'll see the 5-step model from the book version, and you'll notice that it's exactly what's been put into your unit overview, copied into your unit overview, but as Donna said, just in an inverted format. Glad you remembered to bring that up. So moving to lesson 1, we're going to use a different strategy. I'm going to ask you to read silently over lesson 1 with this purpose in mind. Because this is the first lesson that you're reading, I'm going to ask you to kind of have one part of your brain just paying attention to formatting issues. Just what am I noticing about how these lessons are written up? So that's one focus. But the second focus is, how am I seeing the 5-step models in here? And I'll give you spoiler alert, you're gonna be looking towards step 1. How am I seeing? What am I seeing that relates to step 1 here? You know, be thinking about those 2 pieces as you read, okay? I'll go ahead and let you do that silently. When you see that both you and your partner have made it to the end of lesson 1, just touch in briefly, please, about your noticings.
You're nerding out, Barbara. I'm so nerding out. I'm so excited.
But they love to, they end up because then you'll just get
Yeah.
some people don't have to class.
Yeah. Right.
Some kids.
Right.
So at least they don't have to say that. Just the flow is one shot. It's everything's for kids right down, and then that would be a great way to.
It wouldn't be so abstract, it's actually practice.
Yeah, I think if it's
Activity though, if I was the student, I would feel rushed with 20 to 30 minutes to do this, like, I need to think about it.
I'm gonna pause you again. Let's take a minute to just address the first question. Since again, this is the first time you're seeing the format that's gonna be used for every single lesson, let's just go ahead and name the elements that we're noticing about how it's written. So what did we see in the lesson plan format?
The column that has, you know, the teacher information of like how long it should take, and don't forget to catch and release the kids, don't let them just free work, you know, those teacher notes down the column.
Thank you. So don't forget to look at the right-hand column. I will give you a heads up that some of those pieces you'll see every time. Every time you get to work time, you are always going to see a reminder that conferring is a wonderful thing that the teacher, this is your opportunity to check in and individualize by talking to kids one-on-one. You know, so there's always going to be a reminder about conferring and a note about catch and release, but then there will be some other pieces that are different based on the lesson. And that timing, the pacing, helpful tips there. So thank you for that. What other noticings did you notice about the format?
I like that it breaks it down into time. How many minutes should be spent on each task? My first year of teaching, my principal was like, you're not getting to this. Put the minutes up there. And so then I was like, okay, it just made me mindful. And then a couple years later, I was like, dude, you need to put the minutes up there for these faculty meetings because it's like way But I like that because it keeps you on target. It's like, all right, this is great, but we've got things to do. So
Another thing on the chunking is I feel like you keep your kids' attention better rather than we go in and it's 60 minutes of the same thing. In my case, 70 minutes of the same thing. So that's a long time to do the same thing.
In terms of, you've kind of mentioned the different chunks. What do you notice about that format that it's in? It's
Introduction,
It's
it's
in
in the modeling, you know, then the actual practice and.
It's in workshop format.
Yeah.
It's in workshop format. So every time we have some kind of an opener that activates our background knowledge or gets us thinking about what's coming. Every time there is a brief mini lesson where some type of setup and instruction is given to get the kids ready to do some work and engage in meaningful activity. Every time the kids get to remember one of the qualities of skills-based instruction is that it has to be participatory. They have to engage, they have to talk, they have to be hands-on. So every lesson has work time where they are active. And every lesson has that final stage of workshop where you point them back towards the learning targets. What was it you were supposed to take away from this lesson? There's that moment to bring closure or to remind them we're not just about the fun activity that we did, what were we supposed to learn during this lesson? So that's the workshop format that it's been written in.
So do they write at this time?
Which part are
In
you
the
at?
sharing and reflection, like is that a written?
And there's teacher discretion there because you could, like, a lot of times the lessons are written and it'll say journal or it'll say turn and talk. But the teacher could always say, oh, this was supposed to be a journal. I only have 2 minutes left of class. So everybody's, we're going to do it as a think, pair, share. Everybody silently decide how you would answer this question. Turn and tell somebody. I'm going to randomly call on 4 of you. I mean, you could always modify. Yeah. Other noticings about the lesson plan formats. One other thing I will point out, just because it's subtle, and I'm not sure that we would notice it, but the people who were with me when we talked about workshop, just a piece that's just, it's so subtle, but it just makes a world of difference. But every time you get to the end of mini lesson, before you move into work time, it always has this little standard statement that says, teacher explains clearly the procedures for how blah, 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 the activity, whatever it is, will go, including expectations for behavior and interactions. Because that's just one of those standard teacher moves that sometimes when we're busy we forget to do. But when you set them up to do the work and you clearly explain, this is how we'll be grouped, this is how the process will go, this is how you'll interact with each other, and if all that's really clear before they go to the work, it can just make your life so much more pleasant. So that's just kind of another one of those standard statements you're going to see all over the place. Right. So now that we've talked about the lesson plan format, what did you notice about step 1 of the 5-step model? In relation to this lesson, I should say.
They're making a connection.
Yes.
Introducing it.
So we definitely introduced the skill, right? Because if you look at step 1, that's the name of this step is skill introduction. Did we introduce the idea of goal setting, or was it mentioned in there? Do we know we're heading towards that?
Goals and dreams were.
Okay. Why did they bring in dreams? When you look at the bullets under skill introduction, what was the purpose of even talking about dreams?
Because a lot of times kids, well, in general, I mean, they're invincible, so they all want to become a professional athlete, and it's so far away. It's their dream, and they might have goals along the way, but that's not like, it's like concrete stuff.
Yeah, and you said a really important phrase in there. You said they all have these dreams, and you said of being or whatever. But that piece, they all have dreams. When you look back, this was the author's attempt. We pulled this directly from an idea in their book. This was their author's attempt to get that relevance. The so what? Hey, we've all got dreams. We all have things we want to accomplish. This is the back door. This is the lead-in to how this skill of goal setting can help you. Whether your dream is something like being a rock star, or whether it's making the cuts for the basketball team, whatever it is, you've got them. You've got dreams. You've got goals. This is a skill that's going to help you with that. So that was the author's attempt to establish relevance and the so what piece. Okay? Now, this is the only place, it didn't go directly to health here. The rest of the lessons will go directly towards health, but this one was more general, just to hook them. Let's just make you understand goals are important and that you need them, and that in real life, this help you accomplish your dreams, and from here on out you'll see health brought in. Okay? So we've said the skill was introduced. We know we're heading towards goal setting. Did we see a definition of goal setting in this lesson provided to the students?
Yes.
Did we see the educational outcomes for this unit conveyed to the students? Did they know by the end of this unit, here is what I want you to be able to do? Did you guys find where that was? Number 3, by the end of the unit, students will establish a long-term health goal that they will pursue over the course of the term. And you would actually tell the kids this, guys, by the end of this unit, you're going to have set and implemented a goal that you got to pursue throughout this whole course. So this is all said to them up front. They know where they're headed. They know their educational outcomes. They know their educational outcomes for this lesson because you gave them the learning targets. So in terms of that step 1, we addressed that. Could we have addressed it a different way? Sure. We just pulled some ideas from the textbook. This is one way to address it, but this lesson was designed for the step 1. What about the vision board? Raise your hand, please, if you've used the vision board before. Okay.
Not with class, but it's gonna be so.
So you used it in connection with goal setting, or did you use it in connection with a different?
Kind of, not really. Actually, when we've done them before, it was as an introductory lesson,
Okay.
just to kind of tell something about yourself.
Tell them this.
So, she wants me to tell you what I said. One thing I do with this is I have the kids make a bucket list and 25 things, and then we talk about them, let them share, because they get really excited about that kind of stuff, but then go back and they have to tell which ones are dreams and which ones are goals. So like which ones can I actually like truly pursue, and then like which dreams could be a goal potentially like later.
Yeah.
So like there's another way. Like
There's another idea. So like let's say high school teachers with this lesson are doing vision boards. What about middle school doing bucket lists? Or vice versa?
Yeah.
So since we have some people with experience already, but we have a few people who've not used them, I'm going to ask you, once again, I just want you to be familiar with what you have. If you flip back in your binder to, it's almost at the end of this tab, it's about 3 or 4 from the back of this section. It's called Activity 3, Vision Board. This is the type of thing that these authors have provided us. They give a brief overview of the vision board activity. So I'm going to give you a moment just to kind of skim that, briefly check in with your partner about that. And this is something that I just pulled off the internet, just 2 models of what they might look like. Your guys, you can share insights if they didn't look like this. You can give us some tips, but I'll give this to you too in case it's helpful.
Maybe a little more scattered.
I'm sorry.
Put on there. I made them for myself. I've not ever done it with students.
I did them in counseling
Just wait a minute.
settings too.
The way each tab is set up quickly is the lessons that are written for you are first, then is that 8.5 by 11 sheet that can turn into a poster. And there's always the high school is there and the middle school is there. And then the web, some of the web resources that the textbook author has created and are online, and I printed those off for you. So this vision board is activity 3 in the back of the web resource.
And then you can collaborate with your art teacher or your technology teacher. You could do this on computers or, there's all kinds of options.
And you know what we didn't piggyback on was, you mentioned, Brianne, that it's a good way to know the kids. So it's also kind of twofold. If this goal setting lesson is, right here at the beginning of your year, it's also a community builder. This is a way to get to know our kids and what they care about.
Donna, are these little posters like part of the web resources that come in?
They are. And you can print them off 8.5 by 11, or you can print them off, they're formatted to be
Okay.
printed off that size if you want.
Okay.
And or they could be blown up in CRC.
But we can't get to them until you give us a code, or can we get to them?
Well,
You need the code.
I have to give you the code, which
Okay.
I'll do at the end of the day. But you already have, that's the original, so you could,
Is it in the beginning of your textbook?
they
don't work.
still need some. That's what I went through trying to get online myself.
So I'm conscious of the time, and I know it's about time to break for lunch. So let's do a quick check-in. We've made it through our unit overview and the end of lesson 1. Kind of just briefly, looking through formatting and thinking about how just this beginning piece might look. So as we leave for lunch, just a quick closure activity before we go off. Please just turn to somebody, your same partner. Let's just turn to our same partner and just share what is one MIP, most important point that you're taking away from this morning. Just something that just stands out to you as your most important point from the morning. Okay? So just please share that, and then we'll talk about lunch.
Relevant lessons and their activity-based lessons. It's not the same old like. It is a great springboard because like get into it.
Can we just hear 3 MIPs? Just 3 people who will share an MIP from the morning. Thank you.
I was telling her the main thing I got is just whatever you teach, just make sure it's connected to some type of skill that they can actually use during a lesson.
So you came away with the importance of that skill. I mean, how important that is. Thank you.
We kind of both said that this is a wonderful springboard to kind of, especially since it's going to be her first year teaching health, but like to get you started into this skill space.
Thank you.
I feel, since I haven't taught health in years, I don't have to undo anything. So, like, I feel I'm very, like, I'm open, because I don't have, like, my USB with all my stuff. I have my memory documents. I have my suitcase, but it's not in a structured where I'm like, all that work went to waste. I have to recreate it and start over this year. I have to do that anyway, so.
All right. Thank you, guys. And now Donna's going to talk to us about lunch.
Well, we're gonna take an hour for lunch, 11 through 12:30.